And whether they're a fairy tale from Grimm's or a folk tale from Africa, wherever, there are some very simple things about a folk tale. A folk tale has a singular plot. You don't have a whole lot of characters. You've only got one big problem, one big conflict. It's you've got pretty much one setting. You're in the forest and then eventually you go back to the castle, kind of a thing. A very simple plot. And so people, if you want your students to tell stories, you must tell stories to them so that they encode that simple structure of a tale. And then I know one teacher, she did a wonderful thing. She started a storytelling club after school, and she got them all T-shirts. The Lincoln School storytellers. And each child in her room, or each child that was in the club that in her room, had to learn one simple folk tale each semester. Let's say Three Billy Goats Gruff, something like that. And when they could tell it, then she'd put a sign outside her door. Johnny Jones is ready to tell the story of Three Billy Goats Gruff. Sign up. And the rest of the school signed up, and he would go and tell a story particularly to the kids younger. I think they were fifth graders, but the younger kids loved it when the fifth grade storytellers would come in. The trick is, don't ask them to memorize a story. One never ever, repeat this, write big signs, you never memorize a story. The only time you use any kinds of words that are in a story would be if you were telling Snow White. You would have to say mirror, mirror on the wall, right? You got to go through that whole bit. But you don't memorize. You learn a story by pictures. What's the first thing you see? Uh, what's the first thing you saw in the story of the boy with the tears? He's a boy. He's weeping. The next thing you see is that the moon is watching him weep. The next thing you see is what? Moon decides to come down, and you see moon floating down to the earth. Do you see what I'm saying? You don't memorize a story. You just learn the story from whatever source you're going to learn it, and you take out a yellow pad and you say, the first picture I see is blank, and the next picture is blank, and blank, and blank, because you need to see the pictures. And sometimes if you just even draw stick figures next to what you've done, helpful, because when you tell a story, you go inside the story. I'm looking at Stephanie, and I can see Andrew. Not being able to see each one of you is really difficult for me, because you want that eye contact with I don't know. Do I? Let's see. The three books I recommend. The first one, and it's one of the best books, you'll have to go to online to find it. And it is, can you see it? I'm holding it in front of me. Can you all see what I'm looking at?
No, Lynn, we don't have your camera.
We don't have my camera. Okay. This is a book called The Man in the Moon. Subtitle, Sky Tales from Many Lands. It was published, I think, way back in 100 years ago. Hold on. 1969. The authors are two folklorists, Alta Jablow, Jablow. Looks like Jablow. And the second person is Carl Withers. And it is published by Holt Rinehart and Winston. But it has many tales about the man in the moon, and then it has some other it has some stories about the sun. It has some stories about the sun and the moon together. Um, It's just got wonderful tales in it, and they are true folklorists. And you can be, they have cited all the original stories and where they found them in the back of the book, which is very good. Everybody got that? Man in the Moon. Okay, Alta Jablet Carl Withers. There you go. Aren't you guys good? See all these words this comes up. This is not what the ancient storytellers did, sitting around the fire. Okay, another. If you're interested in sky myths, there's one called "Stars of the First People." Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yes, ma'am. Stephanie's nodding. Okay, "Stars of the First People" by Dorcas Miller, Dorcas, Dorcas S. Miller. Uh, Subtitle is Native American Star Myths and Constellations. And it's a pretty good collection. She did a lot of work on this. And she'll do stars of the Arctic, stars of the subarctic. She breaks it down, stars of the northeast tribe. So she breaks it down by area. That would be a wonderful one. You may already know the book Beyond the Blue Horizon by E.C. Krupp. Does everybody have that book? Beyond the Blue Horizon. His bibliography in the back is absolutely wonderful. I think he's personally rather cavalier with the stories because he tells the science, and it's kind of like, well, the science is the truth, and aren't those cute little stories? You must know that in these myths, and of course some of these are folk tales that they lighten up the myths a little bit, but these myths carry great truths. And I, as a storyteller and as someone who's studied myth and have a little understanding of science, I see no contradiction between the two. I think one enhances the other. If you only saw the sky the way a scientist saw it, there'd be something about the sky, a reality to the sky that you would not understand. If, on the other hand, all you know is the ancient story, and you don't know the science, there's yet again something about the sky that you don't know the full reality. And it's the two coming together, the myths and the science, that give us take us deeper into the mystery, each in their own way, but deeper into the mystery of sky.
Hey, Lynn, who was the author on that Beyond the Blue Horizon?
Oh, that's Dr. E.C. Krupp. Krupp. I think he's out at the planetarium in LA.
Oh, right.
Yeah. I would start there. The thing is, what will happen is that sky tales are buried in lots of collections, but you got to kind of learn the key words. If it's a story of twins, it might be a story of Castor and Pollux. I'll tell you a story, this true story. I had read one time, can you all picture Scorpius? Everybody can see Scorpius in the sky? I can't tonight because it's way, way south and it's pouring down rain here. But in some cultures, in Polynesia, for example, they don't add the sting, they don't add the curl. They just see the body of the scorpion, and then if you connect some dots up at the top, you can see a palm tree. And they have that's what they see in parts of Polynesia, and they also see it as a fish hook because they don't have scorpions. What can I say? But of course, they would see a fish hook. They're fish. They're sea people. They're ocean people. Well, in Africa, I had read a reference one time that it was a palm tree, and the red giant Antares was a boy who had climbed up the palm tree to look down at the pretty girls. So one night I'm sitting and I'm listening to a really wonderful storyteller. And he is telling this story that he learned from a friend who learned it from a friend from Africa. And it's the story of the magic palm tree. And in the story, the mother says to the boy, whatever you do, you can, go out into the world, but whatever you do, don't open that door in the closet. Don't climb that palm tree. Don't open that box. It's that cautionary tale. But of course, the story goes on, and at some point he falls in love with a girl, and the only way he can see her is to climb the forbidden palm tree. And of course, just as his mother had said, he gets part way up the trunk of the tree, and the tree opens up and captures him, and you can see Scorpius. And part of that story is true, and part of that.
Oh, yeah, we heard you say part of that story was true, and then part of that story.
And part is just pretend. It's a really good story, though. Uh, and the man that told it to him, he didn't know that it fit with the constellation. I dragged him outside, and I said, you know, here is your palm tree in the sky, and it was wonderful. Whenever we're at a place when we're all together, he'll tell that story to me again and again. I love. Stopped. How we doing?
I've got a couple of questions for you. James, who's with us this evening, asked if you have any other recorded stories besides the three from the Astronomical Society of the Pacific.
No, no, I'm afraid I don't. I There will be if you know sky tellers, you will hear lots of. There are 8 different stories, and I only tell 2 of them. But there's some great storytellers on that. If you need, but you go to skytellers at lpi.usra.
Yeah, I put that link there at the bottom.
You've already put it on there, right? Yeah. There, I see it. Okay, if you go there, you can get the Skyteller's book, and it has got 8 wonderful stories on it, and some that I don't have, that I have not done.
Okay, we've got another question from the audience. Why is morality always such a big issue in stories?
Now, I'm not a philosopher, but it would be my guess, for the same reason that morality is a big issue in life. Um, there are some stories that are just little light teaching tales. Careful, behave, obey your mother, whatever. But there's some other stories, maybe not all of them are in the sky, that are extremely profound stories. And I just think it's because, as human beings, we share. First of all, as human beings, there's one thing that we share with every other human being on the earth. We don't all come from the same kind of cultures. Some of us are river cultures, and some are desert cultures, and some are mountain, and some are island cultures. But we all look up at night and see those sparkling things up in the sky, and they cause us to have wonder. And we all seem to draw upon that mystery. And I think that just viewing the sky triggers something very deep inside of us. And when we go deep inside, I think this is just an opinion, but if it's human, it deals with some kind of morality, good or bad. I think probably mostly it's good. I like, shades of Anne Frank. I think want to be good. And I think the stories do give, if you hear them over and over and over again, They give you, they help you understand the world and how to treat it fairly, which then gets into morality. I don't know. I'm waxing forth.
Well, that's okay. Does anybody else out there in the audience have any questions? Okay. Lynn, is there another story you'd like to tell, perhaps? Maybe a favorite one of yours?
Um, yeah, I'll tell a short one that's a favorite, one of my favorites. And this story comes from Estonia, and it explains why the sun and the moon are in different parts of the sky. It seems that in the beginning, sun and moon were as close as they could be. Wherever you saw the sun, there was the moon. Wherever you saw the moon, there was the sun. Moon was handsome and dark-eyed and mysterious, and sun was gay and a bright, wonderful, bright smile. And they just were inseparable. They took the same path together all the time. They did what happens to people when they're together a lot. They fell in love and they decided to get married. And so they were married and they went to live in a little house in the sky. And time passed, and soon enough, sun gave birth to a beautiful baby, all round and blue and green. And they wrapped the baby in fluffy white clouds and they named the baby Earth. And the three of them all lived together in the sky, just as close as they could be. But time continued on and sun and moon began to drift apart. Moon said that he really thought that the night was best, and that that was the best time, and it should be nighttime all the time, and it was dark, and it was quiet, and it was cold, and that's the way he liked it. On the other hand, Sun discovered that in fact she liked the day best. She liked it because it was loud and it was bright and it was warm and you could work or you could play. And they began to argue about which was best. This went on and on. The night is best. No, the day is best. The heat is best. No, it's best to be cold. And they argued about this so much that they just couldn't resolve that. So they decided to separate. Now it happened that both sun and moon wanted to be the one to watch over the child Earth. And sun complained, you can't watch over Earth. You just, for one thing, you disappear from time to time, and who knows where you go and who you're with. Moon said, well, if you watch over Earth, Earth will be too hot. Well, if you watch over Earth, Earth will be too cold. And this went on, and so finally they went to Thunder, because Thunder is very wise about these things. And Thunder listened to Sun and he listened to Moon. Then he made a proclamation. From now on, it will be this way. The sun will watch over the earth in the day, and moon will watch over the earth at night. And to make sure that everyone stays safely on their path, that everyone is carefully watched over, I will send the stars, and they will watch over the sun, the moon, and the earth, both day and night. And it's true. For ever since that time, the stars have watched over the earth, watched over the sun, the moon, and all of the earth's children.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
Latvia. Did I say Latvia? It should was Latvia. There are some more involved stories, more profound stories that. How many of you do? Most of you work in and around a planetarium. Do we have? I see Katie Buckaloo's name and Christine, and I was But how did I get started as a storyteller? Oh, well, I was working in the planetarium here in Oklahoma City. I got a job, part-time job, just lecturing to the first and second graders, telling them about why there's day and night, and the sun and the moon, and very simple stuff. And ended up being director of from a course of events. And I noticed that when we would do nighttime identification, we'd go out and we'd show them Orion, and we'd tell all the Greek and Roman stories about the stars. But we didn't. Here we are in Oklahoma, which means land of the red man, and we weren't telling Native American stories. And I began to learn that there was this huge body of folklore and mythology about the sky. And that I began to tell the Native American stories. And then I left the planetarium and worked for the Oklahoma City Arts Council. And then at age 54, in 1989, I decided that I was just going to be a full-time storyteller. I wasn't mad at anybody. It's just one of those times when it's just that's what I was going to be when I grew up. And I thought, well, I'm going to give it 5 years, and if it doesn't work, I'll just go get a job. Well, how naive was that? Who was going to hire a 60-year get it? But I've been making my living as a storyteller since. I just you get started by doing it, by learning stories, listening to stories, learning them, and finding places to tell, and wherever two or more are gathered together. I've told at senior citizens places when I was either talking too loud or not loud enough. I've told with kids running around. Rule I now don't tell to small children. I never. The tradition of storytelling is really adults telling to adults. It was not ever designed for children. And then there are some organizations to join. The National Storytelling Network. If you just go to NS, I think it's nsn.org, but it's the National Storytelling Network. And you can join that group and learn where different storytelling festivals are. We just had a storytelling festival here in Oklahoma City that was just amazing. Just brilliant, wonderful artists came and told stories. Adults telling stories to other adults. Evenings, Friday and Saturday night. Oh, aren't you nice? Thank you, James.
Yeah.
And if there are other stories I want to hear or learn, yes, many of them. Sometimes I hear a story and I can't repeat it because I have not been given permission. I'm now working on a project with the Blackfeet Nation and the Crow Nation in Montana, and we'll come up with 3 stories from each of the 2 nations. And these nations not only have their own sky stories, they have their own astronomy. And so it'll be the nation stories, the astronomy that goes with the story, and then it'll have something of Western astronomy as well. A terrific. To learn a lot, but I may not be permitted to tell the stories. Maybe they can only be. We'll see.
Okay, does anybody else have a question out there? Okay, does anybody else have a question out there?
Stephanie asked if are there other stories you want to hear or learn about. Yes, I'm constantly learning new stories. I'm working on, of all things, I want to be able to tell the fairy. I want to be able to tell. I'm getting into telling a little bit of personal stories. but I still prefer all the folk tales, and I prefer the star stories. And I'm very concerned because there's no others in it. It's in the tradition of storytellers to have a niche. Some people just, are famous because they tell their ghost stories, and some people are famous because they tell the traditional Jack tales about, Jack and the Beanstalk being just one of hundreds of those stories. And came to Appalachia. Some people do bilingual storytelling. It's just everybody has a little niche. And someone said to me one time, they said, Lynn, don't you think it's a bit excessive that you have chosen the universe for your niche? But I don't think it's excessive. I think it's no one coming up behind me. I'm going to need to find someone who was interested in learning both the astronomy that goes with those sky tales and the sky tales. James Hill, Bryce Canyon National Park is a wonderful. Yeah, I've told at some of the national parks. We told at Yosemite, and I did a 2-week residency at Rocky Mountain National Park. They give a cabin to be used only by artists. They said, we have all these geologists and botanists and biologists that come and study the park, but we want to hear what the artists can contribute to the park. So I was up there for a couple of weeks, about 3, it's been, I guess, maybe 5. But it is wonderful that the parks are doing this, that they are. It's sad but true that the wilderness is sometimes the only place we can go and see a starry night. If you're born and raised in a city, you never see a starry night. So it's not just the beautiful peaks and the wild rivers and the waterfalls. It's the sky. National parks are doing sky stories and letting that be part of the wilderness experience.
Okay, looks like it's probably time for us to wrap up here. So first of all, I'd like to thank you, Lynn, very much for your wonderful stories and your patience. I'd like to thank everybody else for their patience with us this evening. I guess we never stop learning, especially when it comes to technology. So again, thank you, Lynn, for sharing your stories, and thank you everybody for joining us this evening. Our next webcast will be next week, and most of you probably already heard me say this, but I'll repeat it again. It's next week, next Wednesday, same time, with Dr. Jennifer Heldman from NASA Ames, and she'll be talking about the L-Cross mission, which is due to slam into the moon's south polar area on the morning of October 9th, hoping to find water to get kicked up in a debris cloud. So Jennifer will be here to talk to us about that next week. So until then, have a good week, and hope to see you all next week. And invite some friends along, why don't you?
Thank you so much, and I got a million of them, and we come back and do it another time.
Yes, Lynn, we will definitely be asking you to come back.
Wonderful. Anytime.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you. I'm going to say goodnight to everyone, and thank you, and pass these stories on.
Yes, thank you. Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.